You ready? I was like, where's he going?
You started
All
serious
right.
players, weren't you? I was too.
Yeah, I was.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Lakota Board of Education to order today, July 21st. Adam, will you please call the roll?
Mr. D.
Here.
Ms. Casper.
Here.
Ms. French.
Here.
Mr. Horton.
Here.
Ms. Schaefer.
Here. Do I have a motion for approval of the agenda? So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Adam, please call the roll.
Ms. French.
Yes.
Mr. Horton.
Yes.
Mr. D.
Yes.
Ms. Casper.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes. All right. If you would all join us in the Pledge of Allegiance that our students are going to begin from the audience. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Board President's comments. I really don't have any other than I hope that everyone is getting refreshed over the summer who has a few days off, and thank you to all of our staff that's working diligently to prepare for next year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ashley for superintendent's comments.
I will kind of just second those comments. I do want to give a shout out to our building administrators and our HR department who are really working tirelessly to make sure that all of our staffing needs are fulfilled by the start of school. I was literally just saying to Ms. Casper before we started, August 1st is next week. So summer is going fast, but it's also a very, very exciting time because football camps and band camps and parking lot painting are starting, which are my favorite time of the year. But we are gearing up to have a really awesome year.
Great. Mr. Zink?
So I did send an update. It was a little late. It just came out today. There was some updates on the vetoes that happened on House Bill 96. The only veto at this time is the ability, it was number 66, the ability to do emergency, sub-emergency levies. At this moment, that wouldn't impact us, so that's good news for Lakota. Other than that, I don't have anything to add at this time.
Great. We will now move to Student Spotlight.
So I am filling in for Ms. Fuller tonight, which I love because it's about introducing students. But tonight's spotlight, so you can come on up if you're here with us, it's going to shine on 6 members of the Lakota East class of 2025 who recently competed at the national level, either through HOSA, which is Future Health Professionals, or the TSA, which is the Technology Student Association. These students represented Lakota East, Butler Tech, and our district with excellence, and we're thrilled to share that the TSA team earned first in their event in animatronics. You're going to go right here, ladies. So I have the pleasure of introducing Kennedy Peak, Addie Daly, and Evie Vincent representing HOSA, and then Ella Galliers, Lauren Matlock, and Addison Stahl-Smith representing TSA. So tonight they're briefly going to share about their competition categories and their experiences and just really shine a light on all the hard work that they did at that national competition.
Hi, I'm Kennedy Peak. I'm going to Belmont University. I've been a part of HOSA for 3 years, and I'm majoring in exercise science.
Hi, my name is Evie Vincent. I'm attending the University of Kentucky. I've been a part of HOSA for 3 years as well, and I'm majoring in kinesiology on a pre-physical therapy track.
Hi, my name's Addie Daly. I've also been a part of HOSA for 3 years, and I'm going to Miami University and majoring in speech pathology and audiology.
So a little bit about our HOSA group. We went to the state and national level for the last 2 years. We did our project last year on technology addiction, and we did a little skit, and then this year it was social isolation, and we did kind of an office parody video, and then for our presentation we did a news broadcast, and yeah, we made top 3 in state and did not make top 10 at internationals.
HOSA has really been good to help us with collaboration and our networking skills, and it's really helped us with our detail orientation and a lot of our soft skills.
We definitely learned how to be more collaborative and also just like public speaking. I think that we had to do a lot of presentations in front of our peers, teachers, different groups, parents, and even just in front of the judges, and it's really helped us a lot.
Hi, I'm Ella.
And I'm Addison.
Oh, I'm going to the University of Cincinnati for chemical engineering.
And I will be attending Purdue University for engineering.
We also have a third teammate, Lauren Matlack, who is not able to join us tonight. We've been involved with TSA for several years now, and we've always gotten to see the past senior projects through the capstone engineering class, and that really, seeing those completed projects inspired us to do animatronics as our senior capstone project.
The Technology Student Association, or TSA's prompt for animatronics this year was to create an animatronic that can be placed in a library to encourage young readers to read. So we decided to take one of our favorite childhood books, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, and make it come to life.
We decided to make a hands-on storytelling station that not only engages kids but also rewards them for reading. We set up a system where they can earn tokens by reading books and then redeem those tokens for prizes.
We designed the story to move in short interactive segments where when a kid presses one of the buttons that you can see, a set of platforms come up and a motion is triggered, along with an audio. And then there's a screen on the front that plays captions for the kids to read along.
The physical design was really important to us, so we made the frame based on the house from the story, and we took inspiration from key elements of the story to make our props.
And on the tech side, Lauren, who isn't here tonight, was able to wire and create our PLC, which is a programmable logic controller, which acts as the computer in the brains for our project. She also made that PLC link with the Arduinos, which power the sound, and the servos, which are motors. And make sure everything was timed correctly and the voltages are right.
Meanwhile, Addison and I focused on the aesthetics of the project and building the props, and Addison coded the Raspberry Pi, which proved to be very difficult, but we managed to make it work.
Overall, we are so proud of the opportunity that we had to create this project over our capstone year, and proud that it paid off at Nationals. And thank you.
Wow. All right.
Does anybody have any questions for these talented individuals? I know I was taking notes like, I'm not sure I know what some of those things are, so I'm sure we might have some questions. Let's start with Hosa. Anybody have any questions for Hosa?
I have a question. I don't know if I heard this right. The first set of presentation, did you say social isolation? Yes. Social isolation? Yes. Okay, wow.
How did you pick that topic?
It was given to us.
It was given to you, okay.
I couldn't help but notice the very, very strong correlation between with the majors that you guys have selected and the topics that you guys are, these organizations as well as the projects that you worked on. I'm curious, that would be an R-squared factor of 1 for anybody out in the audience who loves statistics like I do. Question would be, how much was getting involved in these organizations, HOSA or TSA, something that was already there, or rather, your major being influenced by these organizations? These clubs?
For me, it was a little bit of both. I feel like I had that mindset of I wanted to go on this track. Then going into these classes, it truly just lit a spark, and I really enjoyed all the different hands-on activities we got to do.
The trajectory of my future profession changed completely. I was set on pre-law for the longest time, and through all the opportunities that HOSA gave us, it really opened my eyes to this type of field.
And I always knew I kind of wanted to go into the medical field, but I didn't really know what I wanted to go into. So HOSA and just these different types of classes really helped me decide that I wanted to go into speech pathology.
I always kind of knew I wanted to do something engineering or technology or science related, but then being able to take all these engineering classes that Lakota has through Butler Tech has really helped me be confident in knowing that I want to go into engineering.
For me, I was more undecided. I wanted to do architecture for the longest time, and I didn't take engineering at the 9th grade level. I joined actually at the 10th grade after taking it in middle school, and then COVID happened and I didn't sign up. But without joining again in 10th grade, I would not be doing engineering, I think, today. So I'm very grateful for that.
Fantastic. And then I'll just add a comment, which is obviously a big component of these competitions is the presentations that you guys give. And I just want to compliment you on the presentation tonight. We are very fortunate to be able to have students come up and present to us, every meeting, sometimes several groups, and they're all fantastic. But you're the first groups that I've seen that have addressed the crowd instead of the board, which is fantastic. And it just shows how polished you guys are in what you guys have done from a presentation standpoint. So nice job.
Ella and Addison, where's your animatronic now? Is it like in a library, or is it like, do they keep it?
Can I interrupt 1 second? I'm sorry. When you do answer, if you could go to the mic when you do, so anybody who watches this recording is able to pick up your answers, please. Thank you.
We think at the school.
Okay. The reason I ask, I was just thinking how cool with a library. Do you know what I mean? Like, everybody loves that book. I love that book. If you give a moose a muffin, if you give a mouse a cookie, right? So I can see like our youngest learners really being intrigued by what you described and really interactive. So with a new library in town, right, we might have to make sure that that gets to the right spot. So that sounds really awesome. I'd love to see that in real life. So thank you.
My question kind of goes along with that also before you step away. Did you have any interactions with students throughout the process, younger learners that really stuck out to you or continued to push you forward or were exciting? Or?
I mean, I have a little sister, so I definitely thought about her as we were making it, especially because she somewhat struggled to learn to read as she learned to read. So I definitely thought about her throughout that process, and yeah.
Yeah, mostly we thought about us as younger kids, what we wanted to see. But then we also had a showcase that our engineering teachers put on for us, and there was definitely some little kids there that were very interested in our project.
That's exciting. That always makes it feel a little bit more worth it when you can see the excitement on their faces. And then my other question for our ladies from HOSA is, did you learn any interesting facts about either of those topics that were either just interesting to you or that you felt could help change the lives of others?
Yeah, so they were given to us, obviously, so we didn't really get to choose our topic. So it was really important that we got the research down, and we weren't really allowed to have any bias towards it. So we looked into a couple different doctors, did some interviews, and overall we learned a lot throughout it about, during technology we learned a lot about sleep, and during this year we learned a lot about how the COVID pandemic affected us, and it was really interesting.
Speaking from last year, I think the most interesting fact that I remember is that if you're on technology an hour before you sleep, then your brain doesn't really retain any of the information you learned throughout the day. So I've kind of kept that in my mind since last year. But yeah,
that's interesting.
I would say what was most interesting was that obviously last year our topic was technology addiction, and this year it was isolation. But it was really cool to see how technology is so prominent in a lot of the way that our society today is different than it was years ago. So it was kind of eye-opening, and it was really great to see.
Thank you for taking your time out of your summer to come and present to us tonight, and congratulations on your winning at the state level. That's really something to be proud of.
Mr. Horton took one of my questions, but I got it answered. And one of my questions was, do you get to pick your project either in HOSA or TSA, or are you assigned? Obviously, HOSA, you just said you were assigned. How much time prep do you get? Are you assigned the beginning of the school year for whatever your topic like public health is? Is it 6 months prior, or how much time do you have to prepare?
I don't know exactly how much time they give us, but we typically start our process just at the beginning of the school year, and then we compete for the first time in January.
Okay.
Yeah.
And TSA, do you pick your topics, or are you assigned your topic?
Because it's so heavily linked with our capstone project, we were able to pick our project. But I know some students, they do a lot more research into picking their project at the beginning of the year, but we kind of knew that we wanted to do animatronics.
And the way TSA works, they have so many different events that you can choose from. They're not all engineering related. There's a lot of different fields. So at the beginning of the school year, they put out the prompts for that year of all of those events. So we get the freedom to kind of choose which event we want to do, and then the prompt is assigned by TSA.
Well, I would have to echo my fellow board members. Your presentations are amazing. We are so impressed with both your projects and think you've done a wonderful job, so congratulations to that. And it's very interesting to see how, especially with HOSA, how you weren't sure that that was the field you wanted to go into until you were in this competition and in this class. So again, great job. We're so proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Zink, do you have anything?
I was just going to ask, what was the biggest roadblocks or hurdles you ran into in your projects?
There was definitely a lot of like mechanical things that we had to work out. Like we have so many components of our project that it's really hard to get everything to collaborate right. Like we have the PLC, but then we had to join the Arduinos into that and the Raspberry Pi into that, which made it difficult. And then we also had some issues with communication because Lauren, who was not able to be here tonight, was in a different class period than Addison and I. So it was really difficult while brainstorming and coming up with ideas to make sure that we were all on the right track of what we actually were going to build.
Thank you.
I think I can speak for all of us when I say that I think the biggest thing was creating our concepts for it. So we had to make a 3-minute video this year, and it had to be about social isolation, but it could be about anything. So we had to make an office skit. We created that idea, and that was pretty easy to come up with, but then we had a 9-minute presentation too. And I remember us being in the classroom for like multiple hours, and we would get nowhere because we just didn't know what to do. And then eventually we would get through it, and our presentation turned out really good, and I'm really proud of it. So yeah.
Thank you.
So my question is, from the skills you learned and the information you gathered on your different topics, is there any advice or suggestions you have for us as the governance team of how your knowledge that you gain might benefit all students? It's kind of a big one for a quick answer, so it's okay. But I thought, like with the isolation or tech or anything, any thoughts? It's okay.
Mrs. Schaefer has stumped them.
Sorry.
I feel like with this year's prompt being technology addiction, all I would say was, I mean, definitely looking back, the kids probably won't enjoy it, but maybe just leaving the phones down and just interacting with other peers. That was one of the big things that we did in our skit, but just how most people, when they have 5 minutes left in class, they are like this, and they're just looking at their phone, not talking to anyone. And so maybe like at the end of class, do some sort of bonding activity. That's pretty much all I can think of.
Great. No, that's wonderful. Thank you. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, I didn't get. I only asked about the cost. So
Okay.
I want to say that we are proud that you guys went out to represent us. That's the major reason why we're here, students' achievement. So we are very, very proud of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'd also like to thank Nikki Drew is out here, one of the teachers that partners with Butler Tech. So thank you for coming to support the students. And it's too dark for me to see if somebody else is out there, so I apologize if I'm missing somebody else.
They should both come to be in the
Yeah,
picture.
so if anyone would like to come up who is here to support our students, who is teaching them in any of these projects, please come join us as we take a photo up front.
Gone? Just like having me eat.
And now I get my memory test of if I get everybody's name correct. Hopeless.
Board meetings, they don't eat. Is it time for the riveting
All right. At this point, we'll move forward with our levy training with legal counsel.
That's a hard one to follow.
Riveting
I
legal
feel bad for
counsel. The
Mr.
riveting
Stragonski having to
presentation.
follow
Good luck,
children.
Gary.
You can hear it going down from Phil.
Gary's like, really? You're making me follow that?
Try. All right. Thank you, board members. Happy to be here. We'll get right into this. Please ask questions as we go through this. I've given this presentation many times. It goes much better if you guys have questions to ask. And then you don't have to listen to me talk the entire time. In terms of the clicker, it is not clicking. There we go. Maybe I have to point it. The first slide. This is what we want to keep you guys from running into. The same situation that happened in Bellbrook a couple years ago now. This is why the auditor issued a FAQ that we'll touch on in a little bit. But on our presentation, you can see what the district there sent out and what got them in trouble. Basically, sent a couple mailers to residents that said, an investment in our schools is an investment in our community. That was adjacent to an announcement that the operating levy would be on the May ballot. The second mailer said, and this is the one I think really got them in trouble, continue the excellence with the passage of issue 4. A resident made a complaint about these mailers to the Ohio auditor, and the auditor's office investigated this and wound up bringing criminal charges against the superintendent and some board members. Treasurer escaped criminal liability somehow. I don't know how, but I do know the treasurer was not charged with a crime in this case. Superintendent, as you see on here, accepted a plea deal to 1 count of dereliction of duty. 2 board members also went to bench trial with a judge and were convicted of dereliction of duty. They were not convicted of the improper expenditure of public funds. Another board member who was charged was in poor health, so they let that board member go, and the charges were dropped. But this is why we're giving you the training, to keep you all from facing these same criminal charges, because a violation of the laws we're about to discuss can carry with it criminal penalties. So this is the relevant law in the statutes that we focus on here. There's not much to it. No Board of Education shall use public funds to support or oppose the passage of a levy or to compensate any employee for time spent on that activity. You'll see another statute that says Board of Education, is kind of an exception, may permit its employees to attend a public meeting during their regular working hours for the purposes of presenting information about school finances and activities. There's one more statute that applies to all political subdivisions, so this isn't just something that school boards have to deal with. All political subdivisions have to deal with this as well. So this one would, even though we had the prior slide school district statutes directly for you, this one would also apply. Basically says the same thing, right? So the general gist of what we're going to talk about today will be taxpayer funds cannot be spent to try to influence the passage of a levy. Information can be presented in a factual manner, but any effort, like on those mailers we talked about, to get people to vote one way or the other will run afoul of these statutes, and then you might face a complaint and investigation from the Ohio Auditor's Office. So the FAQ, so as you saw, there's just 3 laws that touch on this. They're easy to read. What we really care about probably right now, since this FAQ came out, is the August of 2023 FAQ from the Ohio Auditor's Office. You guys should have a copy there. It's 22 pages, I think, a lot of different questions and answers. The secret on our end is when a question gets asked, we often go to that document to look for the answer. Or to equate your situation to something in there so that we could tell how the auditor's office would rule, because they're going to be the final arbiters of this and the ones who would decide to bring criminal charges if any violation occurred. Probably touched on this. Yes. So again, this is a common practice. Staff can prepare and distribute materials that are paid for by district funds as long as they are factual. So this could include newsletters, financial reports, board policies, actions, procedures, state and federal requirements, electronic distributions, email, email and e-newsletter, that sort of thing. As long as it's factual, that's going to be fine and not run afoul. So anytime a district administrator calls us and says, hey, would you take a look at this? What we're really looking for is this factual and can it be supported? Or are there messages in there that anybody could interpret to be a desire that somebody vote one way or the other, or we're intending to influence the election? And that's what this says again. I will go back to this part. What you'll see in the FAQ, the way it's laid out, is a question, an answer, a best practice, and an example. The best practices in there do go above and beyond what the law would require. So if you did not follow a best practice recommendation, the auditor's office is not going to come after the district. It doesn't mean that a complaint couldn't be filed and we would have the chance to respond, but the best practices wouldn't carry the same force as the answers. So one of the best practices here is kind of this last bullet point. There's a question in there about, talking about district finances and the state of those finances, and people will argue, those who would complain about these sorts of things, would argue that whenever a school board in general has a levy on the ballot or a bond issue, they're going to bring those financial issues front and center to try to scare people. That's what they're going to complain, or that's what their complaint would be about, in order to try to influence them to vote for the levy. So you could certainly do that, bring all that financial information forward. It's a proper time to do it. What the auditor's office said is that it's important to provide, as a best practice, regular updates to the community, not just when a levy's on the ballot. I've been to plenty of board meetings before. I'm sure Adam probably updates the board on the finances all the time, so this probably isn't a concern, but that's one of the examples of a best practice versus a requirement. Surveys, where districts have gotten in trouble before, and this was before the FAQ, now it's very clear we wouldn't do this, but if you hired a survey firm to put a survey out there to kind of gauge the interest of the public on what type of levy or bond issue they might like, the millage rate, maybe when should we put this up for a vote, that's all going to be seen by the auditor's office as being designed to influence the election and improper. Surveys can be conducted, for instance, if we're interested in the community's take on your facilities, right? Which would eventually lead to, should we put this bond issue on the ballot to construct new buildings or to improve them? If you just had general questions about the community's take on your facilities, you could definitely ask that. But anything designed to influence the election on a survey would run afoul of the FAQ and the law. So some of these are a little fun. We'll apply what I've said. Are these statements okay to make? If not, how would you fix them? If the statement was just said, election day is May 3rd, go out and vote, would that be permissible? The answer on that would be yes, that would be fine. You're just saying there's an election coming up, go out and vote. One of the auditor's best practices is to do this for every election, not just one where there's a levy or bond issue on the ballot. But if you only did it when there's a levy or bond issue on the ballot, it's clear that that's just a best practice. Maybe you should be doing that, but it wouldn't run afoul of the law. Your vote shows that you support education. I would probably pull that one back a little bit, just because, well, in here we have shows in bold and underlined, so that could be seen as being designed to influence the election. Kind of a campaign slogan or something like that, that maybe a levy committee would put out, but a school board shouldn't. If this levy fails, we're going to lay off 23 teachers, 3 administrators, 13 support staff, no more fine arts, no more PE for your kids, all of that. Is that fine? Under the FAQ, it would be fine. Now, the way we worded it was a little harsh, and that was intentionally to probably try and trick you, but it is perfectly permissible for a school board to tell the community what the consequences of the failure of a levy or bond issue would be, right? Now, the auditor's FAQ will recommend that the school board adopt kind of a general statement or position on what the consequences of the levy would be, so that there is an official statement. That's, again, a best practice, not a requirement. But the auditor's office says in the FAQ that they get the most complaints from people about this issue. school districts allegedly trying to scare people to vote yes because all of these dire things are going to happen if they don't, okay? The next one, do you like to drive your kids to school? If the levy fails, you'll be doing a whole lot more of it. Again, I don't know that any of our clients would put that out. Maybe somebody would say it, but definitely not in a publication. You know, this one might get the auditor's attention a little more than the other one right above it, just because it's a little harsher. But again, this is sort of, you could argue this is telling people about the consequences of voting no. We were going to pull back on transportation, right? Take it to state minimums. So I would reword this if you guys called me ahead of time and said, hey, can we put this out? There'd be a better way to reword it so that nobody could argue that we weren't trying to influence the election. But that one's more of a closer call as well. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So what you can say about the use of school funds, you can do all these things, the auditor says, advance public awareness of all those programs. Are there rules about where, how you can say it? Not really. You could say it, you know, on social media, print materials, all that. A couple of things here. Use of social media, what's prohibited? Obviously posting material that would support or oppose the passage of a levy or bond issue. So if you posted something on Facebook or Twitter or whatever you're using nowadays that said vote yes on issue 3, that's going to be an issue, okay? Or anything close to it. Allowing the levy campaign to use, levy committee really, to use the district's social media and other school-owned technology to promote the levy, that's going to be a violation and prohibited as well. Although if you did it and the anti-levy or bond issue campaign came forward, you would also have to let them do that. So, you know, that would sort of be an equal access thing. Can't discriminate based on viewpoint under the First Amendment. Permissible, talking about district programs, distributing online reports and materials, providing information on the district's operation, what will or won't be provided if a levy passes or fails. So, you know, I know the district, I don't know if you've passed all of your resolutions yet, but I think there's the idea of a bond issue going on the ballot this November. So it'd be perfectly permissible to tell the public the factual information about that. If this passes, here's what's going to happen. Here are the buildings that are going to be impacted. Here's what we're going to construct. Here's what we're going to renovate, that sort of thing, all factual. You could also say if it fails, here's what's going to happen, right? We're going to remain in our buildings. Maybe there's overcrowding, so class sizes could increase. You know, that's all factual.
Hey, Gary.
Yes.
On the common use of the district social media that's prohibited, what about our own personal social media and our school board pages? I would assume our school board pages would be off limits, but we each have a school board page and a personal page.
Sure. So we'll get into this in a little bit. It's easiest to talk about for board members and then maybe administrators because they are a little bit more worried about this because it's pretty definitive in the FAQ that board members themselves, you know, you guys obviously live in the district. You have a First Amendment right to speak on these issues, separate and apart from your role as a board member. So really, you are able to go out and promote, let's say promote the levy or the passage of the levy or bond issue anytime you want, except for right here when you're being paid, right? Because board members are paid a certain dollar amount per meeting. The FAQ says you can't stand up and say to the members out there, hey, vote yes on issue 3 in November. It's really going to help us. Here's why, right? What you can do, though, at a board meeting would be to explain your vote. So if the resolution to proceed was up at a board meeting, that's the final resolution you guys would be adopting to put this all on the ballot. You would be able to explain your vote, yes or no, for that. But you couldn't advocate for the passage of it at a board meeting. Anywhere else, fair game, because you're not being paid, okay? Different for administrators, and we'll touch on them in a minute. So your social media pages should be fine. Now, on your board social media pages, I might say, because it could give the appearance of impropriety, even though I don't think it would be a technical violation of the law, you might want to avoid it just to avoid somebody complaining and dragging you through kind of the hassle of that. But even that I don't see as a true violation because as long as you're not posting while you're at the board meeting,
Right.
You should be fine. Okay? this is a postcard or email reminder to vote. So earlier, I think we mentioned, like, some districts will do an all call right before election day, reminding everybody that, hey, there's an election coming up, go out and vote. As long as it's that basic of a message, that's perfectly acceptable. So we'll talk kind of your administrators, your other district employees now. What can they do? If they're on work time, and that's where some of the nuances are for some of your administrators, but if they're on work time, they can present purely factual information, right? So you could have Ashley or Adam go out during the workday anywhere they want to present factual information. It could be out to the school buildings, it could be out to the Chamber of Commerce. If they're just saying, here's why this issue is on the ballot, here's what's going to happen if it passes, this is what will happen if it fails, perfectly acceptable. That's all factual, and they can do that during their workday while being compensated. Where you would cross the line is if they then took it a step further and said to the people who are listening, hey, I really want you guys to come out and support us on election day, or you start getting into that political messaging. That's where they would cross the line, because it's during their workday and they are being paid. Now, the FAQ, and there's probably other slides in here on this too, but we'll just skip to it now since it's relevant. The FAQ would say, when they're not working, they can go out and they have a First Amendment right, just like the board members, to do whatever they want when they're not working. So you could go door to door, campaigning for the levy or bond issue, do any number of things to try to show support or gain support for the levy. The problem is often when are our administrators not on work time, right? So, you have two of them here right now, probably more in the audience who are here. It's not a 9-to-5 job. When are they off of work and able to go do this? If what the FAQ would say is if it's not a time the board would be expecting them to work, they can go do that. So if you had no expectation that Ashley or Adam were working during a Sunday, right, at 10 a.m., and there's going to be nothing in their contracts that says that they must do that, they maybe never come in the office at that time, probably okay, right? But a lot of the administrators who we work with are worried about this language saying, I go in on Saturdays to get things done. I work from home. I don't really know what the board expects. They just want me to get the work done. So there is this fear out there from administrators that if I go out and go door to door, could I be crossing that line? And so some of them have just said, I'm not going to do that. We will leave that to the board members to do because you guys have a much greater leeway to go out and do that. So that's an issue. There's stuff in the FAQ. There's a funny one, I think it's funny, that would say the high school football coach can't wear a vote yes pin during the football game, but the treasurer can show up to the game wearing that same pin. Solely if the treasurer is only there as a fan, right? So I guess that's a little bit of a nuance there. If Adam had a kid on the team and he shows up with that pin, perfectly acceptable according to the auditor's office. I would say, though, people aren't going to necessarily know why you're there, though, right? Are you really there to watch the football game, or are you there to, see some board members and talk business as well? So there can be some gray areas there.
For the regular administration, would it be safe to assume that they would be able to go off of when we put leave into our leave system for contract days based on the calendar that they have? Yeah, everybody has that defines our start and our stop time. So is that a safe assumption, or is that too risky?
For your other administrators, like principals and that?
I mean, it can be a little more blurred for Dr. Whiteley and I because, board meetings and different things like that. But.
Yeah, well, it could help, but I would say to the board, or you guys, do you expect the high school principals to be at the football games, right? Probably, I would think. Most of them, I bet, attend. In the basketball games and all of that. So maybe not so easy, but it could help. It could help show that they're off work hours. Right?
Gary, as a follow-up to that, would it be best practice then if an administrator were to put in a type of leave, an appropriate type of leave, if they were to participate in any activity that might be construed as such, like a vacation time or personal time?
Yep,
Okay.
and that's mentioned in the FAQ as well. So even for the two of you, if you wanted to take a day off, a personal day, and then you go out and go door to door and knock, the FAQ says that's acceptable because you're not being paid. And even though you'll be paid for that personal day, the FAQ says, well, that's not really compensation. It's leave they're entitled to take for any reason they want, right? So even that would be permissible, and that's in there. Next slide. I think we touched on that. Throughout the FAQ, they keep using the term for school employee participation in pro-levy campaigns. You must work on your own time and your own dime. That's said throughout there. So good messaging to take away from this. Yeah, and then you must work without directives or financial support of the board. So there can't be some expectation from the board that your administrators are going to go out there and do this. Hourly employees, you know, that is an easy one to kind of track. We know when they're working, we know when they're not, right? So when they're not kind of on the clock, they're able to do this. For your salaried employees, Adam, this would still help too. You know, if they were going to go out and do these kind of pro-levy or bond issue activities, keep a log of the hours that you've worked during that period of time to show that you've at least hit the 40 hours a week, because I think the board is going to expect that people work 40 hours a week or you're on leave for that period of time plus your work time. So that can help as well. We touched on board members. I think I hit on that when I talked earlier about it, everything I wanted to say. This probably we touched on as well. Yep. Even things like the key on this slide, I think, would be if you used your school email address to promote the levy in some way, or maybe it's communications with the levy committee, and you're an administrator, and you're doing that even at home. You know, it could be midnight when the board would never expect you to be working, but if you did that using the board's email system, that would likely be a violation. In a different context, we've seen city council members of the city of Cincinnati sued for use of district computer and email time. I think the person who sued them got like 13 cents back for, they somehow calculated what that cost the district. So even though you would think, well, this isn't really going to cost anything, there is a cost somewhere to that. So even those little violations could amount to a criminal charge. So we want to avoid that. So don't use district technology at any time for support or activities that would be in support of the levy.
Here, when it says you can tell people, you cannot tell people how to vote on election day, can you tell people that you are going to support it on election day, or would that also be a violation?
So this would be for school administrators.
Okay.
So board members, you know, if you went to a polling place and stood out there and asked them to vote yes on issue 5, perfectly fine to do that. If an administrator were to be asked, so I would say first I would want them to be asked. I think they can answer truthfully. I don't want them going out there, though, without a question being asked and saying, I'm voting yes on issue 5 because of all of these issues, right? That, to me, I think would be seen as more of an advocation, or, you know, advocating for support of the levy or voted yes. But if somebody asked, you know, Ashley, you live here, how are you going to vote on this? And she answers truthfully, I don't see a problem with that.
Excuse me, in the example you cited at the beginning, Bellbrook, Sugar Creek, what was the violations for the board? Because from what you said here, I don't see how a board member will violate the...
How a board member could, so the case in the beginning.
Yes.
So those mailers were approved by the board to get sent out.
Oh.
So, yeah, and that could have been how the treasurer escaped liability, because, you know, the expenditure of funds is going to come from the treasurer. So imagine if the idea was cooked up between the superintendent and treasurer to send these things out. You guys didn't even know about it, right? Well, you're not going to be criminally charged. It's just going to be them. So my guess is, without knowing, that well, I do know that the board approved the expenditure of funds and the distribution of those mailers. And so because those mailers said, you know, support issue 5 on election day, directly advocating, that's why the auditor's office saw this and said, you know what, because they see a lot of complaints that don't result in criminal charges, and the vast majority of them would not. But this one clearly crossed a line. And so that's why they ran into trouble.
I see. Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. We touched on that. You're allowed to attend trainings to learn what you can and can't do, so that's part of what you're doing here today. But they can even meet with pro-levy groups and even anti-levy groups to just put forth purely factual information. Administrators, that is. There was a best practice about administrators giving a disclaimer when speaking in public. So, you know, if they're going to be speaking in a purely informational manner, you could get up and say, I'm not advocating that you vote one way or the other, but here are the ramifications of this. Here's why the board put it on the ballot. Again, best practice, not a requirement on that disclaimer. There's the point on leave that came up. And that's really it. You know, biggest takeaway for the administrators, if they're out there listening, would be purely factual information being said or talked about during the workday is permissible. It's when you cross that line and tell people how to vote during the workday when it would not be. And then for your board members, you know, you do kind of have free reign to go out and about and get people to support this levy, just not at a board meeting like this. Okay? It was quicker than I thought, so if you guys have questions, happy to take them.
Can you go back a slide in that last bullet, please? As I read that, when Adam made the point before about if you're working outside of the hours that we track where you can take paid time off, this feels to me a little challenging for our administrators and staff to say, okay, it's 8 o'clock on a Tuesday, and I would like to be able to advocate. I can't take paid time off because it's out of my workday that I track things for. So it seems that they would be able to be advocating at that time, but from what you're saying, they're basically viewed as being working all the time. So
well,
I'm struggling with that balance.
Yeah, and so when this first came out, I had treasurers and superintendents calling, and I don't know that they were happy, and it was neither one of yours, that they couldn't go out and advocate for the levy, right? That they almost saw this as, hey, I don't have to go door to door and do these things, right? Because that's how it was seen in the FAQ. But it's clear that that's not the case. So if it was, you know, for whatever reason, the board had an expectation that one of these two or another administrator would be working on a Saturday, then they should take paid time off to go out and do pro-levy activities if they were going to do that, right? But if there is no expectation of that at all, then they could go do it. It'd be perfectly permissible. So I think on Adam's question was those administrators, like, let's say, maybe you have assistant principals who you would not expect to be at a football game, at every single football game, right? Their day would end at 4 o'clock, right? And thereafter, they can go out and do anything they want, and you have no expectation that they're going to be anywhere. No problem. But I think the example of the high school principal being at a football game, you know, do you expect him to be there? You know, you probably never have put that in a contract or in policy. So if somebody made a complaint, what would they do? They would, for one, make the complaint and try to show that that high school principal had been there every single game for the last 5 years and interacted with all of you. And you knew it, and you had that expectation, and they still wore the pro-levy shirt anyway. And then they went around and talked to parents and students, right? So that's how they would try to make the violation. Now, whether or not that would actually result in criminal charges, who knows? Because it could be defended, right? It could still be that, hey, the board never wrote in my contract I had to go to these games. There's no policy or administrative guideline. But we want to avoid those issues, right? So we would err on the side of caution. And this FAQ, I think even on page 1, says this is a conservative approach to it. If we see a clear violation, we're going to go after it. You know, it encourages administrators and board members to consult with legal counsel in the gray areas. So, you know, there's nothing perfectly clear in here except for a few things. So there are a lot of gray areas. But what we're going to do if we get the questions asked ahead of time would be, you know, how important do you see this particular activity? And if we took the conservative approach and just didn't do it, can you still accomplish your means another way? And maybe there would be that way where we can work through that so that there is no alleged violation or even potential criminal charge.
If we had not sent out a one call to notify people that today's election day and make sure you vote, would this be a bad year to start that?
So, you could do it. But if a resident got that and heard it, and they've been here a long time and never heard that before from Lakota, they could make a complaint. Yeah. And then the auditor's office will look into that, and they have the ability to look at everything you've done around this issue. And they can pull in other things to try to create their case. So it is, on its face, permissible to do, but the best practice would be to do it every single election, to remind people to vote. In that case, nobody could make that argument that we're doing this solely to get people out to the polls. Now, I could defend it because I could say, well, we could be reminding people who forgot and would vote no, right? We're just telling people to go out and vote. So it went to everybody. There's people who are going to vote yes and no. We didn't take one position one way or the other. So I don't think you're running into a criminal violation unless there's other kind of factual issues surrounding it that might lead to, hey, we, the auditor's office, could clearly show this was designed to support the levy. Okay.
So Gary, in most of these slides, we're talking about administrators, principals, us, the superintendent, treasurer. Where does it land on the staff? Like a teacher can't, or can they, wear a vote yes t-shirt from 8 to 4 when they're on duty? Yes or no?
Yeah, they should not do that.
Okay.
So they would be on duty, and these rules apply to them as well. So
Okay.
we use administrators in here, but it's really all staff, every single staff member. So yeah, and you would have policy on that. So it's a good time because maybe your teachers are out on vacation and not watching this. So just remind them of the policies that, hey, you know, here's our policy on, you know, politics in the classroom, that sort of thing. Or here's the FAQ if you're interested. Just provide them the link. Because they are not going to be as well versed on this stuff as your administrators.
So they could stand outside of a football game on a Friday night at 5:30 and tell people to vote yes.
They could, and they could also tell people to vote no, I suppose.
Right, well,
either way.
that's not
but
the
I wouldn't
case.
imagine we had any expectation that any teacher would be at a football game, so they could do those
They could
things.
do if they want, okay.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing this because this is very important information for us to have, but also I think our community. I think one of the really interesting dynamics about this is what the law requires us and how it requires us to speak in certain instances, but then there's the expectations of the community around, you know, whether it's pro or against, you know, there should be more animated, being a proponent or an opponent of it in certain forums if it really mattered. Right, and I think it's very important to underline that we are regulated by statute on this, and this is why some of the tones that you'll see at a board meeting might be different from what would happen if you stopped me in the grocery store and asked me a question as a board member, right?
Right.
And so I think this is great that with our great audiences who watch our board meetings, this will help clear up some of that confusion. I want to just confirm a couple of points to helpfully make sure that that distinction is clear. As a board member, it would be improper for me to advocate one way or the other at a board meeting, but outside of that, I'm allowed to, and that would include things like meetings that could be, school related, like PTSO meetings, that sort of thing, correct?
Correct, because you would not be paid to be at those meetings. You would just be doing it because you're a board member and you want to do it. So that's correct. Yep.
Great. And the second is, I just wanted to clarify, I know we're allowed to provide training for staff on how to navigate these waters. Does that include during paid time, or does that need to live outside of paid time as well?
No, that could be during paid time.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Yep.
And then another question I have is there anything around what I would say, things that would happen during the school day that we should take into account or think through that would not involve staff or administrators or board members? So I'm thinking students, as far as anything that would happen student-wise, whether that is papers they decide to write in English class, or get-togethers and advocating one way or the other in hallways. Is there anything that we should think through on that front?
The only thing I would tell you would be, and the FAQ will touch on it a little bit about using students, if the board or the administration were to somehow use students to get them to advocate for the passage of a levy or bond issue, that's going to be an issue. But if it's entirely of their own doing, they're able to do that, right? So no problems there if they're talking about it in the hallway, or their English class asks them to write about a political issue that's in the news, right? They could do that. No problems there. They could wear shirts one way or the other on the levy, and as long as that didn't violate our dress code, that would be permissible, because we're not paying them to come to school. So they'd be able to do that, and they do have a First Amendment right. But sometimes districts will have dress codes that prohibit a bunch of words on shirts, right? So maybe it doesn't work for them. Who knows? But could potentially be allowable.
Great, thank
Okay.
you. And then I just want to confirm, Adam, if you ever see me at a football game, don't talk business, please. Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question to his question? So, for example, some of our students have to have community service hours for specific classes in order to obtain a grade or credit hours. What if their community service hours were to help with the levy campaign, going door to door? If you go 5 hours door to door, in return, you get credit hours for class.
So what I would tell you or what I would ask you, I think in response is that really community service? Meaning, has that particular class or the building defined what constitutes community service, and would that count? And just under that definition, right? And if it would count, I would think that would be acceptable. But if we're stretching things, right, to say, maybe it's a gray area, or it clearly doesn't count, right? But we're nonetheless telling students, hey, you guys can go out there and get class credit for doing this work. Go work with the levy committee. That could be improper, because then the board could be trying to use the students to get them to advocate. But if that would constitute community service under whatever definition there is, I don't see a problem with that, as long as it wasn't really designed to get them to go do that, right? Or probably the administration of that building and the board shouldn't be encouraging the students to, hey, don't go volunteer down at the Free Store Food Bank. You can do this here, right? We shouldn't be doing that.
I guess, go ahead, I'm sorry. Another phase onto that question too, what about student publications? Because we have a very robust student communication tools that they drive. Would they be able to write articles in that? Either would they have to be factual, or could they take, but they often do both sides of a position.
Yeah, I would say as long as it's not encouraged by the board or the administration that they write it one way or the other, and they're just following their normal rules for the student publication, it would be acceptable. So, it almost has to be their own idea to do it, right? It shouldn't be a staff member's idea that, hey, you guys could write about this, why don't you tell the community why this would be great? Look, we have 35 kids packed in this one classroom. Let's get better class sizes or something like that. So, yeah, if it's on their own accord, I can't see that being an issue.
If there's a situation where a student publication or a student group is holding a forum for school board candidates, and there are incumbents on the panel, and that question is asked, do you support the levy? You are allowed to answer, correct? Because it would not be at a meeting.
Sure.
But it would be in a school setting. after hours, but still.
Yeah, that would be fine. The FAQ, the one thing I think it's very clear on are board members and what you can and can't do and when you can and can't do it. And it's really just limited to a meeting like this. So if it's a candidate forum, it is about school because, the students are putting it on in your example and you're asked that question, you could give that answer. Yep.
And I think it's just for our community that's listening that none of these statutes are new. They've been
Correct.
in place for quite a while, but because of what happened in Bellbrook, everything there is being more closely monitored.
That's right.
Because we pretty much are good at this. We have pretty much, over the years, on bond and levy issues, have had separate levy campaign administrators where it's been factual, so I feel like we'll be good.
Yeah, it was a direct result of the Bellbrook issue. There were 2 other districts in the state kind of caught up at the same time. One, I'd say, in our vicinity, one in the Cleveland area, and the auditor kind of had enough, and had the goods on in the Bellbrook case to bring the criminal charges to make an example, and so that's why the FAQs came out. That's why this part of our business has picked up. Since 2021, I think, is when the Bellbrook postcards went out, just because administrators and board members were kind of scared, and rightfully so, because it's good to have these sorts of trainings and ask the questions to stay out of trouble ahead of time.
Right.
I have one more question. I am the president or vice president of the board. By virtue of my position, I can speak on behalf of the board. Now, there's a forum somewhere, and I went there and I spoke on behalf of the board, either in favor or against the levy. What would that mean?
If you went to a forum and spoke against the levy
For
or bond
or
issue,
against.
for or against,
Yes.
So if you went to if you as a president or vice president, and I wouldn't be as familiar with your bylaws that would say what you really can and can't do in those roles, but if you went and said, let's just say you went rogue and went to a forum and said, even though this is on the ballot, the board wants you to vote no, right? And you're not being paid for that. You're going to run into trouble with the other board members if that's not really the position of the board, right? And it probably wouldn't be since they voted to put the issue on the ballot. But in theory, you could do it legally because you're not being paid at that time. So it's really an issue of, are you really representing the interests of the board? And maybe you guys had a 4-1 vote. And so if you went to that forum, you could say the board decided to put this on the ballot because of X, Y, and Z. Best practice would probably be to mention that it was a 4-1 vote and one board member didn't think that was the best case. And if you knew those reasons, you could explain it. But in general, the board, you're 5 separate individuals, but when we talk about the board, it's the board's actions, so your official votes. So if you go and speak at the forum and say, the board doesn't really support this even though it's on the ballot, well, that's not true because the board voted to put it on the ballot. So that would just be an issue of your truthfulness. Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Anything else for Gary?
I have a question. Let's say that in the wild case that a board member began advocating in a meeting, what would be the best practice to stop this? So that we all as a team would know that, so that we can prevent that, stop it, or, do we need to do a censure? Do we need to do how would that work?
Yeah, I've never seen that happen, but if it were, I would think that it would probably fall on the board president, if the board president isn't the one doing it, to say, hey, you know what, we just had that training with Gary in July. This seems to be a gray area. Let's stop right now and check if this is okay. If the board president was doing the one talking, probably the board vice president's role to do that, or one of you two. If the board wasn't speaking up and you guys were concerned, you could just say, hey, time out, this seems to be a gray area based on the training we just had.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get a giant hook.
Thank you. The other question.
And then on the censure, if there was a true violation, the board could adopt a resolution of censure, which is it doesn't really carry any legal effect. It just tells the public, hey, we don't approve of this. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had was if somebody was to email us for where to donate to a group for or against a levy. Can we forward the message if we had that information, or is that, unsolicited, somebody during the day sends us, hey, I'd really like to donate to whatever campaign? Is that okay, or is that something that we just need to pretend we didn't even see it?
I would probably, in your non-working hours, call that person if you had their number and tell them the answer they're seeking. The forwarding will create a paper trail. But if somebody said, hey, can you tell me where to vote or where to donate to the pro-levy campaign, and I think this is touched on a bit in here, and you were to simply provide them the answer, but also say, here's the anti-levy campaign as well, probably no violation because you've given both, but I would prefer that the paper trail not even be created because it could look bad. People aren't going to necessarily understand the context that, hey, Adam had no idea who this person was emailing them. He was just being nice. It took 1 second to forward this on, right? So if you really wanted to answer them, I would do it in non-working hours, not on your school email, to avoid that.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you, Gary.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Good questions.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, and now we move to board reports, and our Butler Tech meeting is tomorrow, so I do not have any updated information on Butler Tech, and we'll move to policy.
Oh, sorry, that's me. Just as an update, kind of from discussions we've been having around policy, I wanted to let you know that the recent policy under discussion 5113, as I mentioned in an update, is that we do not have to address policy. We will address that through 511 administrative guidelines. So we will literally just add, it's like 2 different sentences. They already have that. Norm at Neoli already has that. He will update that language in AGs, which do not require board approval, and so we will have that underway. Again, it was just clarification about staff members' children, and so again, we don't have to change any policy. We just have to do that through administrative guidelines, which is underway. So I just wanted to give you that we put a bow on that and can proceed.
Great. Anything else for policy? Facilities?
We continue to meet pretty regularly, really weekly. We're getting ready to have a presentation, as you know, from Elevar and our architects. So we'll get a little bit further in the weeds with facilities tonight, but we will continue to keep on that regular cadence. This also kind of ties facilities to item D, community and community conversations. As you know, we are pausing on community conversations as we formally know them until around December, January, and then we'll kind of relift those in our regular format. But really, we are going to spend the fall providing factual information sessions around our theme this year will be we are building our future, not only with facilities opportunities, but our new strategic plan, culture blueprints, programming opportunities. So multi-pronged there, but those community information sessions will be called Building Our Future. Betsy will be putting a list on the website of where those will be happening, and also if a community member or a parent or staff member wanted us to host one of those at a specific location, they can certainly say, hey, how can we help? But the first of those, actually, we had one a couple weeks ago, but tomorrow we will be meeting with the Liberty Township trustees. Again, factual information session. Not tomorrow, that's August, sorry. Westchester is tomorrow from 5 to 6. Liberty Township is in August from 6 to 7. So tomorrow will be our kind of first, like, at-large Building Our Future session, again, providing that factual information to the Westchester trustee townships, and that is, again, 5 to 6 tomorrow, with the Liberty Township to follow in August.
Great, thank you. We then have the committee and community conversation meeting dates available under D. I think we need to make some updates on that because with people's changes in availability, I think we're changing what's noted here as quorum meetings to some subcommittees, since we're concerned about being able to reach quorum for some of our facilities meetings. So look for an update of that information under that tab. And with that, we'll move to Elevar. I guess I should clarify, they are the architects that we are working with on the facilities project.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Fernandez. I'm with Elevar. I'm also joined by Lisa Cameron Golly with our firm, our lead planner. We're excited to be here because we're, I think what started in 2008, an evaluation of your buildings by the state of Ohio, the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, was then updated in 2018, and most recently, just this year, completed, was an assessment of the conditions of all your buildings. And as a result, you were able to have discussions with your community to reach what would be the ideal master plan, which involves the replacement of certain buildings, additions to others, and complete renovations to those buildings that will remain in your master plan. Today, you are being asked to approve the master plan, but as well as to approve the project agreement with the state of Ohio. What this basically allows you to do is, as you do projects, as you proceed with projects, you will be able to receive credit for the dollars being spent by the district. So essentially 32% of the total dollars that encompass the master plan agreement will come from the state eventually. What you are now starting is what's called the Expedited Local Partnership Program, the ELP program. And this basically tells the state that you are going to be spending local dollars, your share of local dollars, to fast forward the process, begin the needed additions and new construction. And then once the state, and we've accumulated and have basically paid for the local share, we will have accumulated those credits. So when the state dollars are available, which we project could be 5, 6, 7 years from now, your obligation will have been met, and 100% of those the renovation work to the remainder of the buildings will be paid by the state under what's called the CFAP program, the Classroom Facilities Assistance Program. So essentially today it's about saying we want to get full credit for the dollars being spent so that the dollars that the community has been paying in their taxes will eventually come back to the community. So it's a great opportunity, a great program. There are some items that we do want to point out in terms of what the state does pay for and certain things the state doesn't pay for. And for that reason, we have recommended a certain amount of dollars to be allocated for what would be locally funded initiatives, things that go slightly above what the state standard is. I will say that there's just been 2 examples of where a district has just built the state standard. All other districts have exceeded that standard because it's important to reflect what the community wants, to reflect what the history is with a school district. Here in Lakota, you have excellent buildings that in many cases are above the state minimum standard. So it's not a surprise that we have recommended a number of LFIs. It's also shouldn't be a surprise that we have programmed some dollars so that we could account for inflation throughout the construction of the project, so that we can make sure that there are enough dollars to pay for the improvements that are necessary. Now, the district is also putting forth what is a requirement for a PI fund, additional dollars for your PI fund. The work there, a majority of the work, is also eligible for credits at the state. And we're going to be working with Craig and the staff here to make sure that all those dollars become eligible. So we're excited about that possibility. So eventually, fast forward several years, you might even be getting a check back from the state because you will have spent your dollars, exceeded that amount, and hopefully after the renovation is complete, you will most likely get a check back. So we're excited for the district. Again, today is a vote for making sure that you could get the credit from the state. So, Lisa, any additions, or? She's my driver today, so. Any questions?
Adam, do you have anything you'd like
Do
to
you want to go to the next slide so that we can see the?
Sure.
There you go. This is on page 2.
So on the left side is what the voters have been asked to, or what the board has put in front for the voters to decide on. It encompasses both the ELP base documents, dollars, as well as the projected LFIs that are needed for each of the buildings. Again, it includes money for inflation, it includes money for LFIs. In terms of program needs, program interest, improvements, perhaps for a better mechanical system, that would be considered an LFI. Also, it does cover, especially at the elementaries, maybe some additional square footage that would be necessary to build gyms that are a little larger than the state minimum formula. Those gyms are awfully small. And also just to make sure that we have enough dollars to account that the elementary completion date is a year longer than the additions to Plains and East Freshman, as well as East and West high schools. So those will be completed in 28, while the new elementaries won't be online till 29. So an extra year of inflation.
So from the time that we would get the CFAP credits back, the check comes in, how long from that point do we have to actually expense those dollars and finish up the remaining projects on our plan?
Let me make sure I understand. In terms of once CFAP, once the state calls you, you've lived up to all your obligations, it's going to be the same 5-year.
It's still the same 5-year, okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was the case, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
So, question. On the CFAP dollars that we would be using when they come in to do the renovations, correct, on these buildings, Ridge Junior isn't going to be a junior school, correct? Correct. So what will, I forget what we're doing with it. Is that going to be an elementary school then? Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's correct.
You just have the current names? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Correct, yeah.
It's like I haven't sat in every, facilities meeting for the last 6 months. I should know that.
One of the things, this is obviously just the executive summary, and when you look through the entire ELPP, what's interesting about it is it really details the costs for renovation versus new schools. And so as we've gotten a lot of questions around, why are we deciding to renovate some schools versus build new schools in certain locations, would I be correct in the fact that it is the big driving force is what bringing it to the state minimum requirements drives up the renovation cost significantly? Correct?
That is correct. The state has a recommendation to all school districts, and most of them do follow it, that anytime renovations exceed 2/3 the cost of building new, that they believe that the district should be building new. the one thing that you need to consider when building new is that you're able to adjust classroom sizes, you're able to program it to current needs versus the needs that, the layouts that were completed 40 years ago or more. So it gives you a lot more flexibility. So when you include that benefit, the educational benefits associated with clean slate, it really does become a good choice for
Yeah, I mean,
districts.
when you look at the schools that have been targeted for replacement, right, most of them were built in the 60s or 70s. A few were built in the early 90s, but haven't had any significant renovations since that time. And the cost to bring them up to the standards that we're talking about to qualify for the LLP is anywhere from 20 to 30 million per buildings. Then you get to Lakota West and Creekside, which, actually is more about 78 million and has been, was started in the 50s. So it's usually in most of those cases just a few $1 million more to come up with a brand new school and have the designed layouts and facilities that we need for modern education versus what was happening at the middle of the last century. So, yeah, thank you.
The other benefit, I will say that renovations always have to be timed around the school year. So, and as to try to minimize as much as possible any kind of disruptions for the students and the staff. So, building new gives you that benefit. You could build a brand new building right next to your existing and not have any concerns or any disruption other than some noise happening next door. But there is a benefit. As we look at designing these buildings, we have to think about what's it going to be like to live on this campus for the next 2 to 3 years, 4 years. That needs to be definitely on the top of the list.
And to confirm, at the final phase of this, we'll have the last phase of this be the elementary schools that would be open for business for school year 28-29, correct?
The elementaries will be open, completed in 29, so.
2930 for the.
2930.
2930, yeah.
2930.
For the new
So
build.
within 5 years, we'd have all of this done versus some of the statements I've seen that suggest much longer, like 10, 15, 30.
Yeah.
And even though those new elementaries won't be, or the renovations won't be done because we'll be pulling sixth grade and putting them in the junior highs, that would happen in the 28-29 school year.
Which will give you a
So even
little
though we wouldn't have all those elementaries online till 29, we would be providing relief to those numbers in our elementaries starting in the 28-29 school year. So just to clarify that. And another point of clarification on the determination of if the renovations would be greater than 2/3 of the cost of new construction, the state is the one who actually does that evaluation and determines if that's the case. And if we chose to not follow their recommendation and go to renovations instead of new construction, we would lose that 32%. So it essentially would cost us more potentially if we did not follow their recommendations. Is that accurate, or?
Well, no, the state would actually support the renovation, but only to a certain level.
Okay.
After that, then the district would have to be responsible. But they would support the base renovation work according to their assessment. So if they come in and say the building needs $10 million worth of renovation, and that exceeds the 2/3 rule, as long as that doesn't exceed the replacement cost, then they're okay with that.
Thank you for that clarification.
And I will say that we see that happening with historic buildings sometimes. School districts might want to, there might be a real emotional connection to a structure that's 80 years old, 90 years old. But with those also comes an extensive amount of reprogramming for the educational purposes.
Sure. Adam, it looked like you had something.
Yeah, one of the things I believe we all kind of view this as is it's a real project for the entire community, not just for Lakota schools. So this 32% kind of as an impact and an influx to the local economy here. Can you tell us an example of when it wouldn't make sense, or what that sweet spot of percentage would be where maybe it would make better sense to go alone and not participate with the state?
A lot of districts have some interesting reasons why to participate. Even we did a district one time that was only getting 5%. We actually worked with them to increase the state's participation. At the end, they got more, but I did ask the superintendent, why is it? And it's so that they could say they met all the state minimum requirements. Now, other people have analyzed it, and typically the number I hear is anywhere between 10 to 15, 20%. Is anything more than that, it's worth doing. Anything below that line is a difficult decision. I think because of the support that they provide, the benefits, I would highly recommend every school district look seriously at partnering with the state.
Okay, thank you.
And my understanding is in the past, they've been more stringent on some of their requirements, and they have become less stringent and more practical in their requirements as time has moved forward.
Yes, they want, you're their customer, and they want the community to be happy with the product that's designed, knowing that their unique situations, program aspects of every school district, they want to make sure that the districts receive the best product possible. So,
any other questions? Any discussion? Thank you. Appreciate your time and coming tonight to speak with us.
thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Would you want to go with B and C first, since it's kind of in that vein? Yeah.
Sure. As one.
Do them separately if you'd like, it doesn't matter.
All right, I'm going to do these separately tonight. We'll go to board action items 8B, the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, OFCC, expedited local partnership program, project agreement, and resolution. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion from what we just had? Hearing none, Mr. Zink, please call the roll.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. Now we'll go to item 8C, the resolution declaring the intent to delay the levy of the property taxes for the bonds and the permanent improvement levy on the ballot for the November 4th, 2025 election until tax year 2028 collection and calendar year 2029 of the property taxes for the bonds and the permanent improvement levy, if approved by the voters of the Lakota Local School District at the November 4th, 2025 election. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
So I will talk about this one a little bit. This is kind of the second part to a resolution of intent. First part we had was the last board meeting where we actually spoke to what the cap would be on the collection amount for the duration of that. This is a very complicated ballot issue. It's become even more complicated in order to make it as light of a burden on the community as absolute possible. So this is just reiterating that if the approval would happen, then we will not begin collection of any dollars of either PI or the bond issue until calendar year 2029. And that's based around the amortization schedules, the way that would look, and that's how we would accomplish that. So this is just putting in place that if something happened to every one of us sitting up here, that everybody really knows this is what the intent was and this is how we were going to get there. So that's what this is about, because it's been a complicated talk on why now if not till then, and it's because we just can't order a building and drop it. It's going to take some time to get that operational in order to reach operational savings.
Well, and we've also seen some interesting changes in state funding and state funding proposals, so being able to lock in that 32%, to me also is a good thing to be able to do, so that we know that what we would be getting back is nearly a third of what we're doing.
I actually had an interesting question today on what we would do if property tax no longer existed. And I would assume that that would then make this the state's problem? I don't really know.
Don't really know.
I don't really know. So, but there are so many weird unknowns going on right now. But what we do want is to make sure that the community understands that this isn't just trust us, you can read it. And that's what we're going with.
And I appreciate the fact that we're using, our understanding of how the work is going to flow, as well as how the bonds would be issued, to actually make sure that we're not unnecessarily increasing the tax burden for our community. And so this is a really elegant solution that allows us to keep property taxes at the same level through 2029, which is of help to our community, even though it's very complicated to describe why this is necessary versus what's on the ballot issue. So, I think the complexity is worth it for our community, and kudos to you and Elvar and everybody for coming up with a solution that's going to help our community.
And again, when we get closer to that timing, we'll also want to have another communication campaign so that everybody knows what this is. We need to keep this, it is what it is, and no surprises.
Yeah.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Adam, please call the roll.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. Now we'll go to item 8A, the Lakota Sport Support Organization Manual. Do I have a motion for approval?
I feel like I need to make this motion to approve this because I've been working on it for 10 years.
Can you second it as well? I'll second it.
All right. Further discussion?
Okay, I will add something to this before everybody else gives their 2 cents. We have worked really, really hard on aligning this organizational manual. A lot of it really is around board policy 9211, that speaks to the needs, like what things that they would have to provide and how to be a part of this. So it's supposed to be helpful. It's supposed to be something that anybody would be able to use. If they wanted to begin supporting the district, the board would then take an action on it. It's one of the other tricks that I've been working on to make sure, how do you get started? And then how do you renew? Because this also has implications with our group 1 of our facility usage. So that's where people that are part of the support organizations, they have to pay. If we had staff needs, they would just have to pay that, but they don't pay for the physical location. So there is an incentive for people being a part of this as well. We have worked very hard with the support groups to make sure that this isn't prescriptive. This is very general. This is so they have ideas. This is so they know where to get started, or what sample bylaws. There's a lot of appendixes, a lot of samples in here, just to try to help everybody know what to do, to prevent any types of bad situations and keep everybody in the loop. So that's what I have on this project.
So this has to do with like external bodies, companies, and how does it
More booster groups, it'd be your PTOs, your booster groups, your support organizations, and a lot of them are 501c3s.
Yeah.
However, they don't necessarily have to be. There's also ways that they can be included in those.
Individuals as well.
That's correct.
So it's predominantly like our parent-teacher, PTOs, PTAs, parent-teacher organizations, boosters. So that is predominantly who this is covering and meant to help. So I gave Adam my feedback. Like, I know this has been a work in progress. I know it's gone to President's Council and that it's all been worked on, and it sounds like there have been many iterations. I think it will continue to be a work in progress, because I think there's opportunities, and as we roll it out, and sometimes the answer to a question creates more questions, and I think that will probably be the case. So while we are being asked to approve this, I would not anticipate that this will be the final version. of this document, and it'll continue to evolve as needs and questions arise.
As we have updates, right now, there's 170 people that have comment access to the document in Google. So that's how many people have gave feedback and chimed in and let us know, and some of the things we wouldn't have even thought of, this isn't meant to be you have to go this way. It's here's an option, here's what we're trying to accomplish. But those folks will still have that access. Once we would get to, let's say, a point like this again next year, if we had meaningful change, then we would bring it out. We want it to be a very static point people can look at to say, here's what we had approved, versus the evergreen, because I almost thought about bringing the Google Doc link in, but then thought that could become even more of an issue with all of these people. So that's where we landed on this direction, and it is definitely a starting point to the long point to get to this point.
Yeah, I also told Adam that, this is something we should revisit yearly.
Absolutely.
And, because even sitting in the meetings about this document, you ask a question, they ask a question, you give an answer, and then there's well, what about this scenario? What about this scenario? What about this scenario? Things we haven't thought of because we don't live in that world anymore. I do want to say that it's meant to protect our parent organizations. It became, as over the years as we've done this, that we don't want anybody to think we're micromanaging their dollars and doing anything. It's just we're trying to protect them. We all believe that they are honest, hardworking people that would never do anything wrong. But you just never know. And we have actually had incidences in the past several years where people did not make really good decisions, and it cost the district and the organization funds. So we're really just trying to protect them and give them a blueprint for how can some things work. Because again, also, your leadership changes, your PTA presidents from year to year. And so I do want to be cognizant that we will revisit this yearly.
Absolutely, and I believe that we've come a long way since sharing out the link, sharing out the manual so that everybody could proof this, we're getting a lot more questions on the proactive side versus the reactive side, which is what we want. We've really been encouraging that. If you do have questions, please reach out. We can figure it out together. We can, troubleshoot different things, and so that's been a lot of the extra. One of the places that, the world revolves around us, right? Or me personally on this one. I've spent a lot more time putting in examples of different ways that staff could be paid through the support organizations. Because, we know that sometimes these volunteers where they say, hey, let's do a program. But there's different ways so that everybody just understands what we need, how to calculate it, so that everybody can plan accordingly.
And that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
We've had in the past, Independence does it this way, Cherokee does it this way, and there's no
alignment.
Phase 2 of this would be then to put out a thing to all of our building administrators to let them know that maybe at 6 o'clock one evening we'll have a get-together where any of these people can come and we'll talk through it and kind of get the next steps together for them as well.
I know typically we think about our current support organizations, and what I love about this is it meets the needs of people who are getting together that will be the future support organizations of the district. And so what I love about it is usually you have really good intentioned, companies or parents or community members who are getting together because they see a need and they want to form a support organization, and this instantly gives them a look at just how complicated things can be. Not in a way to scare them off, but also just to give them a heads up that things that seem nonsensical that should be easy. It gives them examples of why the things that they need to think through before they kind of just start launching into action. So I think it serves a dual purpose here, which is really, really good because we have such great communities. We have such a great community, and people are so active, and we're always approving the donations that we get every month. So the more we can help service that and actually enable them to move forward with that is well done in my book.
All right, any further discussion? I just would like to thank all of our support organizations for not only their assistance in refining this manual, but for all that they do for our schools every day.
Yep.
And with that, Adam, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Mr. Adi?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. All right, we have treasurer's recommendations A and B, approval of board minutes and approval of monthly financial reports. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Further discussion? You can't tell if you're about to say something. Okay.
I was getting ready to call roll.
Any further? Adam, please call the roll.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
You guys have heard me enough for one night.
Not done yet.
I don't want to cut them off. Superintendent's recommendations 10A, approval of personnel items. B, motion to approve school fees. C, approval of contracts. D, approval of resolution declaring transportation impractical. And E, approval of donations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
Just for personnel items, just a reminder that there is a resolution on there for retire, rehire. This is the final piece of the process for Mr. Bauman and Mr. Kaufman. So not only are those specific resolutions on there, which are required for ORC process, but then they're also in the personnel file so that they can be approved for a contract. Also remember that retire rehires are what we call at-will employees. That means every year their contract will be evaluated. So this is a one-year contract, which is a little bit different from our regular administrators. So I just wanted to point out the personnel file has them on there, but also the resolutions.
Thank you.
And I'll throw one thing out too. A one-year contract, but also a one-time process.
Correct.
This process of retire, rehire for these two individuals, assuming same job, this is a one-time.
So if they would stay with us another year, we don't have to do that whole.
We don't have to do the whole thing. We just have to do the resolution each time, the final resolution and the new contract.
Okay.
So this piece that we're getting ready to do.
Worth noting on
Yes.
this.
Great. Any?
I'll also make the comment that we're also being asked to approve the resolution declaring transportation impractical. It's one of those votes that every year I'm very empathetic for. A lot of the families would like to have this. I think, what I've seen before I was on the board and now on the board is when you look at the costs that are associated with this, it's exactly what it says it is. It's impractical to deliver a bus route to serve very small numbers of kids to certain schools. And we estimate generally about $100,000 for a bus route for the entire year to drive 5 kids to Bishop Fenwick. Just isn't cost effective, and that's why the state has this allows us to do this in a way that makes it cost effective for both us and helps compensate the families for arranging other transportation needs. I know many of the families on this list, and they're great families, and most of them understand. But it is something that I definitely understand the situation that puts some families in. But I really support the fact that we're being financially wise with how we're investing our transportation funds.
Anything further? Hearing none, Adam, please call the roll.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. All right, we'll go to closing comments. And Isaac, would you like to start?
It's like yesterday. Summer is almost over, right? And yeah, and very soon we'll start having our kids back to school. I'm looking forward to convocation. I missed it last year, and I'm looking forward for it this year. And actually, I don't have any comment. That's all I have.
Great. Mr. Horton?
I don't know. I'm bummed out that summer's coming. I'm not ready for summer to end. Let me say, I want to call one thing out. There's been a lot of movement at the state level as far as, and we've been very focused on the financial impact of the district. One of the things that floated out there, which I was glad to see the governor veto, was the making school boards political campaigns and requiring them to be political. I'm not using the language right, but basically requiring primaries. Yes, requiring primaries. And I'm very happy to see that veto. One, because I don't want to have to go through that should I look to re-elect at some point. But two, I think it drives up costs. And then secondarily, I think what it does is make this a spotlight for people with political ambitions rather than people who know the district and know and are actually interested in governing and helping the school districts. And so I was very happy to see that veto because I feel that we've been a district that has seen that firsthand what happens when those kind of political ambitions come in. And so just wanted to say that I was really happy to see that that veto happened, and we'll hope that that stays the norm going forward. With that, that's all I have.
Mrs. French?
I don't have much of a closing comment either, other than I'm excited to turn the corner into the 25-26 school year too, and I love the new theme.
Communications department, they're a jewel. I will say, we tested ChatGPT in all the iterations, and little iteration, but we finally landed on one that I think really encompasses all the work of the next school year of 25-26, not just master facilities, but beyond that work as well.
Mr. Zink?
Well, I can't believe we're almost to August. This has been quite the year. We've made it almost to the start of a new school year, which is kind of knocking on the door of me being able to take a break. So I'm looking forward to that once we get these new contracts off the ground. Shout out to all the people in our support staff roles and all that they've done to get the school year up and running and ready to go. There is a lot of work that goes in when some people are not in, so that when they come back, then they can be off to the races as well. So thanks to everyone for everything that you've done on that. And I believe that's all I got. Thank you.
Again, I reiterate, excited for the new school year, and you know me, the shiny floors. I love the shiny floors. So thank you to our custodial staff that is currently making those floors shiny. I know that there's a lot of work that goes on over the summer in the buildings, and I don't think people realize how hard our custodians work, not only during the school year, but during the summer, getting, a building that 800 kids have trampled through for 9 months, ready for the, the next round of kids. So thank you to them, and I appreciate them. And just a little, I'd like to just publicly thank our 2 assistant superintendents that are leaving us. Stacy Maney has taken a job as a superintendent in Miamisburg, so we will wish her well, and good luck to her. And Mr. Vogelman has decided to share his talents with a lot of other people as a consultant in the ESC, so we just want to thank him for his years of service. He's been here quite a long time, had a big impact in Lakota, so we want to thank him for that. And we want to welcome Mr. Marshall, our new assistant superintendent, and Mr. Bagshaw, our new HR director. We're hiring people all over the place to get ready for the next year, so.
The email that I sent the other day about staffing transitions was as much for you as it was for me, to write it down and remember all of our new and exciting folks and names. Here, summer or not, we have new staff all the time. I saw one of our new assistant principals. We've had principal transitions. Even though it feels like summer, like you said, when you're in the day-to-day setting up for the next school year, you kind of forget that it's summer because all the people are just on board and making sure that we're ready for kids to report back.
And I believe Mr. Ruff is here tonight, so congratulations to you as well, Mr. Ruff.
All right. I'm not going to repeat what everybody else has already said, but thank you to everyone for their work. And also, even Dr. Whiteley gave me a call from her vacation far away, and everyone, it doesn't stop. A lot of people are like, oh, do you do nothing over the summer related to schools? It's astonishing how much is actually happening when there's time to concentrate on all the ramping up and ramping down versus just the day-to-day operations. So thank you for all that work that's happening. And with that, I'd like a motion to enter into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Mr. Zink, please call the roll.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. And we will not be taking action other than adjournment when we come out of executive session.
is that one. I sent them a screenshot.
Taking my spot? Oh, sorry.
I never know what.
Keep that right.
When, today?
Oh, my goodness.
What? Isaac's like, what are we doing now?
What is this?
You'll see. Let's do our
Oh, my
business.
God.
Okay. Ready when out at 9:39?
I'd like to pull us out of executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing
You
none?
didn't take a second.
I did. I did. Adam, please call the roll.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. Thank you.
So what are we doing?